Hi again, everybody, and welcome to special edition of Inside Furman Athletics, second one of the week. I am Dan Scott. Jason Donnelly is here, and head coach of the men's basketball team. Bob Richey is here as well. Second one of the week because last week's Ask the AD got postponed to this week.
Yeah, and Dan, it sounds like we're wearing your voice out, and that's a good thing because you've been doing so much travel. We were just talking about that just before, but we appreciate everything you've been doing and a lot of road travel. But I got to ask, and I'm really thankful that Bob's here, and I'm excited that Bob's here, but I didn't get to travel because I was here for the women's basketball game, but you were both there on Saturday. Just want to talk about your experiences for both of you being in the gym and going through the process of winning a Southern Conference championship on a packed home court, road win, SoCon championship on the line, everything, national TV. Just how cool was that?
Well, it was a lot of fun, and just to see our guys, perform on that stage with everything that was on the line, just the poise that they played with, the confidence that they played with, but it was kind of fun. Dan was pretty close to me, and I actually had one of my best friends who used to work here, Jordan Sorrells. He called me, and we were talking. He was just like, "Man, this is awesome," and he's like, "I've got DirecTV Stream." And so we don't get CBS Sports, so I had to turn on the radio.
Yeah.
He said we're out in the driveway, and he's like, "Man, Dan did an unbelievable job." And I told him, I said, "You know what's funny about that? As the game started going down, towards the last 5 minutes or so, it wasn't quite as loud in there, and I could hear Dan, and his excitement and passion off the broadcast was getting me excited, and almost in that coaching mode of like, you don't want to get excited until the buzzer goes off, but man." He was calling the game with a lot of fire, and which is obviously something I love.
Well, you just try to tell the story, and the story builds, and as it became more and more obvious, you get to the 6-minute mark, and then the 5-minute mark, and the 4-minute mark, and the 3-minute mark, and it starts to become apparent what's going to happen. That they're not going to come back, so it does start to build. The funny thing to me, and Tom and I were talking about this. About 15 minutes before tip, there were still probably 300 or 400 empty seats in there, and we wondered what in the world is going on. But by the time tip came, it was completely full, and it was a great atmosphere. And it's interesting because up until last year, every trip that we had made to Sanford, the atmosphere was lousy.
Yeah.
But last year, obviously, in Bucky's
second year.
They got it going, and of course we knew what it was going to be this time with what was on the line. But that's as Bob and I talked before the game. That's why he coaches. That's why I broadcast. All the other aggravation that goes on with the job, it's those moments that you do what you do.
Well, the conversation about that game goes all the way back to when they released the schedule in September. We were having dialogue about the schedule. And then inside baseball and scheduling is that when the conference does the schedule, they make the decisions. But a lot of times there's things that are wrong. Like when they do the schedule, there's dates that are off, that things got to be changed. There's building stuff that takes place. And, there's conversation also about, hey, we're the preseason number one. We're going through Sanford to finish the year again because we were there last year, the last week of the season. And at the time, in a really good way, Bob had said to the commissioner from the coaches group, said, these TV games, as opposed to preceding them and not having the best game in the end, we should really wait and have the game of the year. Because last year for us would have been Chattanooga. We were finishing up there. We didn't get that national TV game on the back end. So they held the game. They had that game on the schedule. And every time they redid the schedule, for whatever reason, it just kept being Furman at Sanford to end the season. And I kept saying to Bob, I was like, this is intentional. They're setting up the game of the year. But meaning like you do all the work and you see where you're going to wind up. But the irony of the whole thing, it all came together into one day.
Well, you look back on it, and it's you almost wouldn't want it any other way. Mm-hmm. And this has been my 6th year doing this, and I told the team the other day, so I'm not saying anything new, but probably in a lot of ways the most challenging, but also in most rewarding, and in a lot of ways the most enjoyable. And we just dealt with a lot of just the psychological and the mental approach to the season. And, coming in with the expectation that we had, it was one of those deals as a coach, coaching 101 is downplay expectation. Don't let expectation get too high. And I'm always been kind of the opposite of that. I think expectation excites people, and I think it gets an energy, it gets a support. Most coaches will tell you, 9 out of 10 coaches manage expectation. Don't you want it to look like, oh wow, look what they did. And I knew what we were losing. I knew how good Alex and Conley were, and how critical they were as 2 fifth-year guys for us. But I also knew that we had a lot of guys that were going to be really good in time. And I think just seeing how just looking at this 31 game regular season, I wouldn't have put it together any different. Yeah. And how it came to that point at the end. You get through the Charleston Classic. Oh man, they're not playing as well, and we kind of have some good wins in the non-con. Obviously, the Belmont win, Stephen F. Austin, go up to App State win, but weren't quite consistent. And then we get out at league play and we lose 2 of the first 6, and it's kind of like, oh man, and this group just stayed with it. Yeah. And they got to a point where I felt like the youth started to mature. They started to enjoy, hey, this is what this is. Like, let's go out there. Let's not be afraid to lose. Let's not be afraid. Let's just go have fun doing this. And then we went 8 in a row, and then we lose at Citadel. And it's like, oh my goodness, what's happening? Like we're playing so great, and then all of a sudden you got to deal with that. Well, then everybody kind of marked us off a little bit. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, it was just kind of, hey, Sanford, Greensboro, and then man, we'll see how this goes. And you kind of felt that going into the game this weekend from a coach's perspective. I think people had kind of decided what they thought was going to happen in that game. Yeah. And it was clear coming out the gate, our group had not. And just looking in their eye and seeing that, and then you get through the whole 31 games, and it's like, hey, for the first time since 1991, this team's the 1 seed. You win the league, and you go back and you look at the growth of J.P. Pegues, and you look at the growth of Alex Williams, and you look, and even the old guys. I mean, and if Jalen's standing right here today, he'll tell you right now he grew more this year than any of his 5 years here, and from the mental side of it, right? And so, I think there was a lot, but man, to be in that locker room at the end of that game and to do what we set out to do, not the ultimate goal, but definitely a goal, right? Like not the final goal, but definitely something that we wanted to do. It was really rewarding.
I got to interject about Jalen because he had his moments, we'll call them, early in the season. And I know you had some conversations with him that you got to reel that in, get your focus where it's supposed to be, and not worry about things that you can't control. And after he started playing well, I talked to him about that on the post-game interview. I can't remember which game it was, but he was very open about that. He was critical of himself and just talked about how he had to rein in his emotions and keep focus on what he could control. And Bob, that's got to be a fine line to walk, because part of Jalen's game is his emotion and his spirit and all of those things. So you can't totally take that away from him, but you can't get caught up in every call that doesn't go your way and all of the other things that seem to be affecting him early in the season that he was finally able to push to the side for the most part.
Well, that's alluding to the growth, right? Yeah. I mean, you look at his career, he starting in his second year. You look at those guys he was playing with. I mean, Alex Hunter, Noah Gurley, Clay Mounts, Jordan Lyons. I mean, he just kind of he was a guy that you saw a lot of potential with. But even last year, Alex Hunter, just his maturity. Last year was the first year where okay, now this is clearly an all-conference player. But he had Alex and Conley out there as some stabilizers, right? This year was the first year for both of them. Like, we knew how talented both were, but now it's like, hey, you got to wear this. Like this is on your shoulders, and that's different. And I think what he learned was when we first started to manage it, it was like, hey, you can't do this. And like you said, like, okay, well, then I'm just going to try to play without emotion. And I said, no, like, you want to play with emotion. You just don't want to be emotional. And there's a difference, right? Like, the motion of celebrating with your teammates, the motion of, hey, bringing energy to a huddle, or the motion of, you want all that. I mean, we think about Jordan Lyons and the foot stomping and the Clay Mounts celebrations. And we've always been better when we play with a certain emotion. I mean, even Saturday, Mike hit that second 3 and he looked at our bench and he brought some emotion. I can assure you that. And so I think he worked through that to where, hey, it's more about, and we talked about this as a team on Saturday in the hotel, like, the belief is going to be something today that's felt. Like, real belief is felt. Like, what do those behaviors look like? And that's what we've kind of told Jalen is focus on the things that you need to do. that bring good, healthy emotion to the game. Don't get so fixated on the things that you need to avoid, right? Because that's going to make you just clamp completely up and not go be yourself. And you can say, hey, he only scored 9 points on Saturday. Da 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 da. Wait, first of all, he got 10 rebounds. Mm-hmm. And the best part about Jalen Slauson's game, for those that understand the game, he had 2 really interesting plays in that game in the second half. One was in the first half, one was in the second half, where he turned the ball over, and he chases the ball down on both plays and gets a huge block. First play spun in there. They made a good play. They steal it. He comes down, blocks it, goes off their head. We get possession. And then I think the second one, we're either up 10 or 8. I mean, it's still a play where, like, if they convert it, they got a little momentum. They jump back in the press. And he had a bad turnover, and he didn't pout. He didn't stop. I mean, he chased that ball down, and it was an incredible play. We ended up coming back down. They fouled us, and we got possession and scored. But those were the plays that, like, and even if you go back to the time where Mike threw it back to him against the press, and he pushes it, and then he makes a 2-foot play to G, and he gets the dunk. There were just multiple plays where he had some huge critical response plays for us, and those are always big in games like that.
And there's some big storylines here. Like, as I'm listening to you talk about that, you talk about the emotion of the team, and I remember distinctly how you handled the pregame leading up to the practice before the South Carolina game. Like what you figured out about this team. And you talk about trying to find your identity. You're losing 2 arguably all-conference guards. 2 guys that made a huge impact on the program with Alex and Conley, and then figuring this team out. And then you think about also how you prepare for South Carolina, how you went through the whole process in the preseason, how you handled, the struggle, when we weren't playing great, and then the things that you turned on. And I'd make an argument that, over the last 3 weeks of the year, Furman basketball is one of the best in the country. So in terms of production, in terms of efficiency, you take that Citadel out in terms of what we've been doing. But talk about the storylines around that in terms of what that season, as you look at it as a whole.
Well, I think that's something that myself I had to, you got to kind of isolate yourself and figure out what's the best way to lead this group. And going back to that expectation, I wanted as much energy around this team as possible, right? We're still trying to expand the fan base and get Greenville behind this, and we don't feel like we're finished in what we're doing from a infrastructure, from a facility, from we still feel like, hey, we want to keep pushing this out. But let's just look at the top 3 teams in the league, right? We returned 2 really good players. We all know that. We all acknowledge that. That's going to become public today. Mm-hmm. But we didn't return the most. Yep. That's statistically proven. We didn't. Sanford returned more than we did. We didn't return the most experience out of those 3 teams either, right? Greensboro, 6 of 8 are seniors this year. So there were some things that I knew, not necessarily quietly, but after we scrimmage Lipscomb every year, and Lenny Acuff's one of my main mentors, and he called me the next day. He said, "Hey man, you're gonna have to give yourself a little grace. Those two guys were good." Yeah. And he's like, "You're gonna have to understand." And I remember where I was. I was in my bedroom, and I hung up the phone. I looked at my wife, and she's kind of my sounding board. And I'm like, you know what? He's right. We're going to have to be patient through some of this. And even when we decided to start JP, it's funny now, but I've got texts on my phone from people that care a lot about this program that were just, hey, what's, he's coming along, and how's he doing? And, there was a little bit of concern, and he knew he was stepping into some big shoes, and I think that's natural and normal. But I had to stay with him, I had to, and I told him that when I gave him the job. I said, "Look, you're getting this for 8 games. I'm standing by you. I'm not expecting you to go play perfect, but I think for the excitement around the program, we wanted it all to just hey, this thing's got to go." And man, I sure am glad we stayed with it, and I'm sure you watch Mike Bothwell go out with 3 fouls. And then, the storyline is Mike hit 4 threes to start, but there's another guy that hit 4 threes after that.
Yes.
And he just, the way he's playing, JP's confidence right now, his competitive spirit, the ability to go make plays down the stretch. Even in the Mercer game, he hits the 3 to go at 5, and then we call the 2 plays for him. He finished that game out for us. And, that was a storyline. I think you look back at the bench, we were talking about this the other day as a staff. Just as at App State, Alex Williams doesn't play a whole lot, right? Mm-hmm. Alex Williams doesn't play the first 6 games of the year. App State was his first game back. I think we played maybe 5 minutes. Carter Witt doesn't play a whole lot, right? Tyrese is growing. He was out all summer. Ben Vanderwall is a guy that, man, to be honest with you, in September I'd have told you we were redshirting. Mm-hmm. And so, that's probably been the most fulfilling part, is to see 2 things. To see Mike and Slaw continue to grow, and it's like I told him yesterday. I said, you came back here to win a championship. You want to win 2, right? But you won 1 already, which you hadn't done before this year, but to see their growth, but also to see these other guys that really just grew into Ben Vanderwaal's and won 3. I mean, they cut it to 4. Mike's got foul trouble, he bangs that shot. I mean, that was the neatest thing, and I think I might have said this on the radio. Everybody did something in that game.
Yes.
And to do that at the highest level means that this team grew mentally, emotionally, as well as physically through the season.
I think you can argue that the most important progression for any player on your team this year was J.P. Pegues, with not just what he did on the court, but from speaking up in an early team meeting and the impact that had, the way he's played, and the way I like to describe him as the season has gone on is he is just a tough little son of a gun. I mean, he really is, and he's made such an impact on this team.
He's competitive and he cares, and he did something that I haven't had a player do in my 6 years of doing this Saturday, which was really impactful, and I knew at that point when he did it that we were gonna put ourselves in a pretty good situation. But just so the fans halftime for a fan probably seems long. Like, hey, we got 15 minutes to wait around. As a coach, it goes by. It feels like it's like 3 minutes long. Mm-hmm. But most staffs in the country, what they're going to do is you're going to get back. You're going to you might go address the guys for 30 seconds for one powerful thing real fast or one quick thought. You get with your staff for 3 or 4 minutes. You try to get back with your team at about the 10-minute mark. You make some adjustments. You overview what you're doing well. You're overviewing what you got to improve on. And then you try to get them out of there at 5 minutes. They got to get some water. They got to get back out to the court. So we're huddled up. Another storyline. Every time we've gone to Sanford, player locker room, coach's locker room, right by each other. Okay, we get there and they're like, "Hey, coach's locker room, you're way down the hall, and we're actually splitting you into 2 little small locker rooms." So our staff wasn't able to meet together as a staff before the game. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, why are they doing this? And I told the staff, I was like, don't worry about it. I know why they're doing this. But we had to go down the hall. So we had a nice little walk at halftime. We're bunched in this locker room that's got like 4 lockers in it, 1 shower, 1 toilet, and we're all huddled in there. And all of a sudden, never have seen this happen. JP walks in our meeting. And he looks at me, and Quez had gone for 16 or whatever in the first half. And there was some frustration about the ball screen coverage and, hey, who's messing this up. And he looked at me and he goes, Coach, look, I know I was saying that I need a little bit more help from our bigs. And I know I was saying that, but I'm just letting you know, like, I was wrong on that. I've got to figure this out, and I got to do better.
He told us that in the radio postgame.
Wow.
And he looked at me in the face, and he said that, and he left. And I looked at the staff and said, we're going to be just fine. and it's just because when you can get a team,
great.
When you can get a team to take on, and that's what I told him. I was like, when they take on the responsibility of, hey, we just got to go figure this out, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Quez can't go for 16 more this half, right? Now, he ended up getting 27, but that was a lot less than he got in the first half. And I think that's the uniqueness about him as a sophomore. He's not afraid of responsibility. Right, like he's not afraid of the ball late. He's not afraid of making the play. He's not afraid of put this on my shoulder. And I love Mike and Slaw, and it's going to be a sad day when all this is done. But I think the interesting thing about this team is it's like you only have 200 minutes. I think there's more with some of these guys that they could be doing right now. If like Tyrese Huey, Tyrese, I mean, he 40% 3-point shooter. I mean, he had a couple major rebounds in that game on Saturday. Can move his feet, can run the floor. There's just, when you're playing Slaw 32 minutes and you're playing Mike 32 minutes, well, that's 64 right there. There's room to grow, but there's a couple of these guys I know for a fact could do more if the opportunity provided itself. And that's where the excitement of, continuing the program with those guys, all the experience you're getting right now is only going to help for next year.
Well, let's talk looking ahead, too, because there's so much we could talk about, and we also could get Bob back to work to prepare for this weekend. But your thoughts on the Southern Conference tournament? We've had some great dialogue about it, but just heading back into it, expectations, kind of sharing the plan, and we'll provide some color around it, but just also kind of a call to action, too, like what you want to see happen this weekend, not just what you're going to do with your team, what you're going to do with the program, but fan base-wise in terms of where we're going.
Well, I think one thing with that is I think last year was the most energy we've ever had around the tournament, and I think it started with your team and everything you guys did to organize the events and the days and just making sure everything was aligned. And I think there was a lot of enjoyment with that, and I think we're going to get year 2 of that of just really post-COVID and really trying to build this into an event, something that's a calendar event for a lot of people. My challenge to everybody would be this: is home court's up for grabs in every one of those games, and I think that our presence in that arena, how much purple we have in that arena, the quarterfinal game, the semifinal game, if we're fortunate enough to keep advancing and get to the championship, like we've got to make sure we understand whoever gets the most people in there gets to set home court advantage. And I remember when I was an assistant here, you would just crave the day of being in the situations that we are now, and thinking, man, if we can play in these games on Sunday and Monday. Man, we're an hour from here. We're gonna have a lot of people in here, and you'd go in there, and ETSU's flowing in there, and the Wofford's flowing in there, and I think we need to look at this and understand the opportunity this is to bring energy in there. The other thing I would say is let's make sure, and this is a message internally to our team, but also to our fan base. Like, let's not make the mistake of looking past Saturday.
Exactly.
This is 3 1-game seasons. That's what this is, right? We got to go 1-0. We got to get to Saturday, and we got to figure out how to get to the next day. And I think as a fan base, we need to carry that same attitude, right? And I think it's easy to say, we'll see you Sunday, right? But
I'll tell you from my perspective, I'm not hearing that at all.
Good.
The cool thing that I'm hearing about this is I'll see you in Asheville.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the work that setting the tone, the expectations, the program, and the events around it, but the feeling, and one of the coolest feelings for me last year was, for whatever reason, that Monday night, I'm outside the arena, and I think it was like a crazy weather day. Like there was all kinds of storms, and the amount of people flowing into the arena wearing purple, representing Furman, and the enthusiasm that they had on their faces was off the charts. I actually think the carryover effect in terms of what it's going to be is that people aren't talking about, well, I'll see you on Sunday, I'll see you on Monday. They're coming to Asheville, and they're making weekends about it, and they're starting to put it through. I know our fan base always talks about the students in a really good way. Bob and I are working on a proposal that we've submitted to the administration to try to move spring break, and that won't benefit us this year, but God willing, a year from now, we might even have the opportunity to get our students to be a part of this and not be on a spring break. But I can feel it, and you used to say that to me where, hey, I'll see you on Sunday. I'm like, I'm not hearing Sunday. I'm hearing see you in Asheville.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. And I think, going with the expectation, I think the 31 games have prepared us and helped us understand that whatever the expectation is out there, it's never going to be bigger than the one inside that locker room. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing is understanding that outside expectation doesn't impact the result of this. We just have to go play. Yeah. And, that's how we're going to focus on this. Like, the messaging within the team is, look, there's going to be something in one of those games that's going to be something that we're going to have to manage. It's going to – Mike Bothwell getting 3 fouls Saturday, right? Like 8 minutes left in the first half. Well, guess what? We had to manage it. There's going to be something like that every game. And we've got to understand over the last 2 months, we've proven we're the best team in the league. That doesn't entitle us to go out there and win every game. But I think we've got to understand that, hey, we got to go out there and just – we don't need to feel the pressure of, hey, we need a fast start, or we need to play this 4 minutes well, or we need to do this well. Like, we just got to go be us.
Yes.
And if we can get – it was the whole deal Saturday. If we can be us and we can be free, we're gonna be fine. Yeah. And this team plays better when they're free. And I just want them excited to play. I want to make sure they feel that today in practice. I want there to be a good energy. This is not pressure. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity, and it's a great one. But like, that's how we've got to look at this. And man, when we play free, we're fun to watch, and that's what we're pushing for. What does Furman basketball look like if we can go do that for 70 possessions a game? Then take them one at a time. Then we'll like where we stand at the end.
Well, the other thing I wanted to talk about also before we move on from basketball is Timmons Arena. And since the last time we've had you here, we've had the announcement of the leadership gift by Ravenel Curry. You've seen a lot of fundraising taking place. You've been participating in a lot of great conversations and leading the effort in terms of getting this done. But can you share with the public just your enthusiasm for what the project is, your expectations, and things you're excited about as you think about the future of the program for Furman basketball?
Well, I think it's people hear about a new arena, and I think the first question is, what's the dividend? What are we getting off of this? And that's where I know I look at things a little differently than a lot of people, but I think as you build program and you look at it and studying all the programs through the years, it's never chicken or the egg. It's the collision of everything at once, right? It's all of it. Like there's not a single component that doesn't matter, right? Like you got the people have to be right, Obviously, your process has to be right, and there's a bunch of different processes in this, from recruiting to tacticals to, how you deal with your stakeholders. But then the physical components of this, of what a recruit sees and what a recruit feels, what a stakeholder sees, what a fan feels. I think what you want is, when people come and look at the program, just like when you come in the offices now and when you go in the locker room, it's not so much, hey, we want this many seats, or hey, we want this or we want that. We want excellence written over everything that we do. Like, just, hey, this is what we're trying to project as a program. And that's not, yes, that's for recruiting for sure, but it's also to attach to Greenville, and to fill this up. And I think the fun part is to look at, hey, look, when people come to a game, they're like, man, the experience of that, right? The hospitality spaces. And it's similar to what I hear a lot of people say right now with the well games. Man, we got this and we got that, and we've added the seats this year. But the opportunity for us to just be able to serve people better, that excites me. I think the opportunity too, that, hey, this is excellent. Like when you go there, it's not so much how big is it, what is it, like that it's done right. And then yes, it does help. It's the whole Nick Saban. I always tell this story. When Nick decided to leave Miami as the Dolphins coach, and they convinced him to go to Alabama. He's up in the air, and y'all might have heard this before, but he's in the plane, and it's just he and AD. And he looked at the AD and he said, you think I'm decent at my job, don't you? And the AD said, well, you see the contract I just gave you, right? And Coach Saban starts laughing, and he looked at him and he goes, if I don't have the best players, I'm not the best coach.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and he said, look, we have to do everything we can to make sure we have the best players in the country. Mm-hmm. And that's when you look, and I've had the pleasure of seeing both facilities at Clemson and Alabama. Look, they've got the most resources. Yeah. Like, that's just the facts. Like, so therefore, when a recruit comes and they visit, they say, hey, you know what? They might not verbalize this, but in their minds they're saying, hey, they're more committed. Yeah. And that's what they're analyzing right now. Like, recruits are looking and seeing, what's the investment level, what's the uniqueness, what is the commitment level, and they want best. And I think we have an opportunity here. We know we have the best degree in the league. Okay, we know we have the best campus in the league. I'm a little biased. I think we have the best city in the league. Okay?
And I'll make an argument. I think you've proven it with 2 first-team, SoCon players. You have the best player development in the league. And
Correct.
I think there's other things that are also not tangible, but when you start putting the whole puzzle together, and then you say, okay, what is our flaw? What don't we have? And we talk about everybody on this podcast wants to win. They want to win anything that we do, but if you want to take recruiting to the next level, you've got to be honest about where your blemishes are.
And sometimes people are saying, well, and I've been asked this question, like, well, what do you think this is going to allow us to get recruiting-wise? Like, who are we? And that's a fair question. From my seat, what this does, it keeps you from being eliminated by the ones we've been recruiting.
100%.
Does that make sense? So, like, we've, and I don't want to say names, but there's certain guys, there's a guy in the ACC right now that I'm 100% confident we would have gotten if we got deleted because of the arena.
Yep.
And he wasn't tracking to ACC at that point when we could have gotten him. Another school at this level with a better arena got the commitment, and he was basically this close from doing it. And then he saw their facility, and it does. It makes them question investment, right? And so, it's not so much that are we going to be competing against Clemson and South Carolina once we get the arena done? No, that's now. If there's a kid in state that decides I want a big-time degree and this is the environment I want and maybe I'm local to Greenville, it just keeps you in conversations.
So we'll use another tangible example that we're aware of is we made a decision to add courtside seats this past year. And courtside seats, in addition to the experience all around the arena, the bar and grill right behind and the student section and the energy, the marketing, like people don't see your team on campus all fall carrying basketball hoops around, engaging the students, giving them pizzas, driving around on golf carts, like all the different things that take place to lead to this. But one little area, we add the courtside seats, we try to figure out how to go about doing this and do it the right way, the pricing of this, the hospitality that comes with it. Well, these seats sell out almost overnight. So they're gone. And the people who are in the seats are generously supporting the program at a level the program's never been supported before. So they're invested. But what's crazy about it has been the attendance and has been the energy that they've brought to this program, it's brought to the next level, is that one experiential item has led to I mean, these guys' attendance at games is 90% plus. And when they don't come, they're actually regretting that they weren't there. They're getting the feedback, they're going someplace else and had a conflict that they're missing it. But it's, and you've said this to me the whole time, it's been incremental improvements over time in terms of what we do. So, we're so excited to take this venture on in terms of where this arena is and accelerate this process. It's going to happen. But I know what the process is too. And then we have to look at it competitively also, like who you're competing against. I mean, just at our level alone, anyone that's in our peer set has got facilities that are beyond Furman. So to do what you've done, and one of your counterparts in the league said, for you to do what you're doing here in this dump, that's what he said. Like, it's unbelievable. And it's a great credit to you and your staff.
Oh, he hadn't been in the league long.
Yeah.
And he came up to me before the game this year. He goes, I don't understand how you guys are winning at this level with this. And he wasn't saying it negatively.
No,
it was
he just was comparative.
And you know what's been good? There has been, and look, I've been here for a while, and I've heard all the conversations about the arena, and I've heard, some people thinking, hey, is this necessary and things like that. What's been neat about this is the most we've had people travel this year. And some of these key supporters that maybe would come to home games, well, they've been going to league games, and I mean, we've had guys jump on airplanes to see us this year, and what's been neat about it is even going to the game up the street, like now they're coming back, and since they're in these facilities, they're like, oh yeah, we got to get this done, you just it's just one of those deals that you when you see just strictly, not just outside the league. Like when we play Belmont, everybody listening to this wants to beat Belmont.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they just opened up a brand new practice facility, right? Like because their arena has been right, and so nobody is standing still in this battle right now. Everybody's figuring out ways to progress, and I think for us, this is the one item that we know we've got to get attention to. And the neat thing I think is we've clearly seen the energy behind it, and we've clearly seen people jumping on board with this, and it's going to be. Once we can get full focus on it in the spring and get this thing to the finish line, it's going to have a huge impact on our program.
And the 3 R's are the most important to people. It's recruiting, it's retention, and it's resources. And this allows us to do all of those things at a higher level than we could do them right now. And I don't think people also understand the pressure that you feel with retention. Part of the challenges you have with building a great program is that you have great players and people know it. And today's model is that they try to take those players. And so we got to be protective of the resources that we have, the people that we have, the coaches that we have, the investment. And on that note, we were discussing right before this because we can't really talk about SoCon awards that are coming later today because this podcast might come out of it. But I just want to say to you and to the public that we're not a part of the voting body. ADs don't have any decision-making in selecting this. But for you, Bob, the work that you did this year, preseason number 1, finished the season number 1, Southern Conference Championship, that's Coach of the Year. And a lot of this stuff is politicized in terms of where you go through the process. And as a former coach, I know what it is that some guys will send votes here, some guys send votes there. Some guys are going to vote for other reasons on guys, and it doesn't always come out in the proof in the pudding. But when coaches and guys who are in that sport know, the awards don't always matter for what the performance is. The results is what speaks to itself. And when you're number 1 seed preseason, you got a bullseye on your back, and when you finish the year number 1, that's direct correlation to success. And it's the work you did way before you ever got to the season. It's the work you did in the season. It's the opportunity you have ahead of you. But I want to thank you and congratulate you on everything you've done for Furman.
Well, it's been a fun journey, and there's a lot of people involved in that regular season championship, and it's fun to see the work to pay off and to see what used to be a dream become closer to reality of saying, okay, you know what, we can continue to sustain winning here, right? And we've proven that. I mean, heck, the program's only won 24 games or more 3 times, and it's all been in the last 5 years.
Yep.
And, there's still things that we can improve. Like I can get better in areas. I try to figure out every single day how I can do something a little bit better. This season has stretched me. I feel like this season is there's areas that I've grown in, like the whatever how people want to put their value or I think 2 years ago, the team that finished 6th got Coach of the Year, like it's nobody loves a winner right now. And we understand that. We want to be Team of the Year. And as cliche as that sounds, I told the team yesterday, I don't know how this thing's going to shape out. But I told in front of the whole team, I said, Mike and Slaw, look, you might cancel each other out for Player of the Year. Maybe half goes with you and half goes with you. Like Marcus and JP, look, like, I think they're all conference players. I don't think there's any doubt. I just watched both of them in a huge game. Like they played, like played really well. And I even told Garrett, I said, Garrett, there's guys that in our league that might get recognized that, hey, you've had more value and impact, but it's just the opportunity, right? The opportunity is different. And so, look, the best thing this team's done since 2022, the last day of it, that's when we basically, January 1st, we said enough of the noise. Like, we're just going to go be who we are. And you know what? We've lost 2 games since then, and one was my fault at home, and the other one was probably, we probably got a little ahead of ourselves. And, it was a nice little lesson late in the year that anybody can beat you on a given night. Mm-hmm. And but outside of that, I mean, these guys basically took a 17-game stretch and won 15 of them. And versus the top of the league, we go 3-1. Like, that's what we've done best. And I think going into Asheville, the whole thing is going to be that's where all our attention is. Like, exactly. We'll take all this, but we want to make sure our whole attention is going and doing whatever we got to do to win that game Saturday at noon. And that's the fun of it.
This is awesome. Dan, anything else? We're trying to keep you from talking because I know you're scratching.
Good stuff.
We got to save your voice for the weekend.
You and Tyler Eckstein. Tyler Eckstein, we got home and he couldn't talk. I'm trying to figure out some logistics from him. And I'm like, what's going? He's like, Coach, I was just screaming the whole game.
My problem is that on the way home from Birmingham, I started to develop symptoms of a cold. And when I get a cold, the last thing that happens is it settles in my throat and I lose my voice, which probably pleases a lot of people, but it's not good for the job. So I'm going to the doctor to get a little help.
Dan, we don't need you to say another word till Saturday at noon, so you're good.
I always tell people occasionally I have to, and that's what I'll do today. I'll go on steroids for this, but they don't enhance my performance any.
That's love it. Thank you, Bob.
Yep, thank y'all.
All right, that is Bob Richey. Just remind you while he exits and Jason gets ready to slide over a little bit that the SoCon Championships are this weekend, starting tomorrow with the women's side of things at the Harris Cherokee Center in Asheville. Tickets are still on sale, so you can get those by contacting the ticket office here at Furman. And Dwight Covington will be happy to direct you where you need to go. There'll be walk-up tickets available in Asheville as well, but we need to get as much purple as we can in Asheville for the Southern Conference tournament. The men's first round, the play-in round, is on Friday, and then, of course, Furman will play the winner of the Citadel-Mercer game on Saturday at noon. If you win that, you play the 4 o'clock semifinal game on Sunday. And then, of course, the championship game again is on Monday at 7 o'clock in Asheville. All right, Jason Donnelly back. Bob Richey going back to doing what he needs to do.
We could call it a show right now because just so grateful and thankful for Bob's leadership and everything he's doing, and just how passionate and just how detailed and just how inspirational he's been, and just such a great leader. And regardless of how things come out when they vote on SoCon things, Bob, the job he's done this year has been truly remarkable, leading from the front, handling challenges, controversy. He did this great interview the other day I saw with Julia Morris and got emotional talking about how hard it was last year as a program, not about him, just about what those guys went through. It was very revealing with him and how he felt about that, what they had to deal with. But just really grateful for Bob and Jalen and Mike to come back to be a part of this the way they have. It's been really, really special. And some exciting stuff as we look ahead, Dan. I just want to share with the public that obviously this weekend's huge in Asheville. And when Bob says we need support, like, everybody and every voice, every bit of purple that we can get up there matters. It's going to drive the energy that we need. As we look ahead, what's really exciting, too, is regardless of the result this weekend, we are going to play in the NIT, and hopefully we play in the NCAA. So depending on where it is, this team keeps playing. So no matter what happens this weekend, basketball continues for the men. Obviously, the women are playing this Thursday at 3:30. We were just talking about that. Looking forward to being up there. So anyone that can join us up there for the women, we're going to celebrate them. And and get them started on Thursday. But as we look ahead, I mean, be prepared. Month of March could be really busy for Furman basketball. We'll do a Selection Sunday event that we'll share more information about if we advance to the NCAA tournament. That'll be on, and this is for your calendar too, Dan, because we'll need you, but it'll be the Sunday of Selection Sunday. If we advance, we'll have a great celebration around the team, and that'll be for students, that'll be for fans, that'll be for families, that'll be for everybody. Anyone that wants to be a part of that, we'll get more information after we advance. We got to advance to have that moment to come together. And then other things that are taking place around the program in addition to basketball. We got a great football spring game coming up Saturday, March 18th. Will be a lot of fun. Noon here at the Paladins Stadium, and there'll be a lot of different activities for kids and families, so we encourage folks to come through that weekend. And as you go forward from there, we're also hosting, Furman Athletics is hosting the women's basketball Sweet 16 and Elite 8 at the Bon Scores Wellness Arena. It's just Greenville and Seattle. So the opportunity to host the Sweet 16, host Elite 8 with some great basketball taking place here in Greenville is another opportunity. And we may be splitting time. You know, we may still be playing, basketball at that time, and we'll figure out what that means.
It'd be a good problem to have, wouldn't it?
Be a great problem to have. And that's why we need you to rest your voice, because our intention is to keep you busy. But while this is all going on,
I'll be fine come Saturday.
Well, you got spring sports going on, and we're looking forward to spending more time with them, particularly as we get past the basketball seasons. And then one thing I want to put out for everybody also, that to everyone have on their radar, and we'll get into the questions here, but April 15th here on campus, there's a campaign launch that takes place April 13th through the 15th. But anyone who's associated with Furman is welcome to attend, invited to attend. Our whole athletic staff will be here, our coaches, our staff. Anyone that's not competing will be a part of that weekend. And we'll be sharing a lot of information, including about Timmons Arena, which we're going to talk a little bit about today in our questions. But I would strongly encourage anyone that wants to be a part of this to join the celebration, be a part of it. All the information's online. You can contact our advancement staff, our alumni staff. But that's going to be a big weekend for Furman University. And we hope that anyone that can come out and join us will come out to join us that weekend and learn more about everything that's great that's going on at Furman, but also specifically what's going on around the athletic department. So we'd love to see you here.
With that, you want to dive into some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, because most of them actually center on Timmons Arena.
Good.
And the first one was just an update on fundraising. And does the full amount have to be raised before construction can begin?
Yeah, great question. So Timmons Arena is off to a great start. And Bob indicated before, we've received tremendous support around this. Obviously, the lead gift donations that have made to date. We've had great support from our president, from our board of trustees, and from our donors. And again, this is just in a smaller group. We haven't even got to the stage where we're going to share more public information about this. But we only need to get the commitments, not the cash, in order to break ground on the building. And what commitments means are pledges that are built over time when we get to that $40 million number, which allows our university to plan and to finance and do all the different things when it comes to construction standpoint that we need to do. So the goal is to get to those commitments as quick as possible. We're obviously using the calendar year 2023 to focus on that effort in terms of to lock up those commitments. And it's not an easy thing. To raise capital is a hard thing to do. It requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of resources. It requires great commitment. But it's going really, really well to date. Now, we've got a lot of work to continue to do, but we feel really good about what that is. So the question is about cash is that, having the cash that we need, we obviously need to get it in, but it doesn't slow down the process of going through the process of building a building.
Seating capacity is a big one, and building it with room to grow potential. What are in the plans for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the key thing to keep in mind here when you're asking this question is you got to look at the scope of the project and what we're trying to get done. The key term here is that it's a renovation. A renovation means we're taking an existing building and we're changing it to conform to what it needs to be in terms of all those different specs. So the three things to keep in mind is fundraising. How much can you raise to do that, to make the changes from inside a building? Renovation means taking an existing structure and resuiting it to what the needs are to be the building. Then the third thing to remember from a room to grow is we still intend to play and engage games at the Bon Scores Wellness Arena. That's a major asset for us when we talk about growth. If we weren't in a vibrant city like Greenville, and if we didn't have an NCAA level facility downtown, then maybe our conversations about size and scale may be different. But given where we are in terms of what we're trying to do, we're trying to raise the money to do a renovation of an existing building where seating capacity is going to be similar to where it is now. Now, where that ends up and where it lands is part of those conversations we're having right now when we're talking to our architects, we're talking to our designers, and we're going through the process of making small decisions that impact larger capacity. But when you do a renovation, you should expect that the capacity would be similar to what it is now when you do a renovation, just better. You want to take every aspect of what that is and make it better. If we did not have a downtown arena where we'd have the flexibility to host 15,000 people in a game, and obviously that's a goal. I mean, that's something we want to do is pack that arena, then we would look at this differently. We talk about, do we need to build a bigger arena to go to size and scale? We're not as worried about the size of the arena. We're more worried about getting the arena right and making sure it's the right fit for all of the things that we need to do at Furman. One of the rules of thumb is also you want to have an arena that is roughly the capacity of your student body. It's kind of a rough number that institutions look at. If you're a large state institution, you probably want to have a large arena. If you're a smaller private institution, you want to have the right size and scale to give everyone that attends the right experience and really give that value. So part of the goal, too, is to get to the point where this team is winning consistently, selling out arenas consistently, using the well downtown to grow and to have games that are larger scale than that, and just have the best competitive advantage we can have to focus on those three things we talked about before, which was recruiting, which was retention, and which was resources. Those three things are the most important thing.
When the renovations actually get underway, whenever that is, will home games be played exclusively at the well that season? Or is that still up in the air?
Yeah, so we have a great partnership with the well, and we really value that. So we will play a majority of those games there. They're prepared to host us as soon as we can possibly get there. The challenge with the well is, in spite of our ability to do that, they still are going to have scheduling conflicts that are going to affect our ability to schedule. So we're going to have alternate options in addition to the well that we're going to have to consider. I've been fortunate. I've lived through this. I've gone through an arena renovation, and the team that we had, we did some creative things. We did some different locations. We did some different venues. We did some creative games. We had a lot of fun with it, and actually it was a great year. The hardest year it was on the ticket guy. The ticket guy had to keep doing CADs and keep doing different drawings and figure out what to do. But he and I worked on this exclusively together, so we know what it is. But we would look at the well as our primary space to be for more than the games that we'd normally do. But we'd also look at some creative things that we want to do at different venues and in different markets, and to do some things that may be fun along the way. So it maybe look like a different season, but we'll try to maximize the opportunities for the program. What you want them to have, we're more worried about where do you practice, where do you work out, where do you get your shots up, what's the displacement plan on campus, and how that impacts everyone. But I can promise you that the program will be prepared, and we'll be sure to get way ahead of it in terms of how we communicate and what we do during the season when we're not in Timmons.
The next question was, will the commitment to the program continue at a level that warrants going through all of this?
Yeah, no, that's why you do it. I have the benefit of having been a part of programs that have had this transformational success, and I think Bob said it really well. It's not the chicken or egg. It's all these different pieces colliding together at the same point. We're at that point. We're at that point where you got a first-rate, excellent, outstanding coach who we all need to appreciate him being here. Bob and Jessica, they want to be here. They want to be a part of Furman. But we have to keep in mind what we are. We are a small, private liberal arts school in South Carolina that is resource challenged. We don't have every last thing that everyone wants. And some of the jobs in our marketplace, when you look at some of the jobs in the ACC, the SEC, the Big East that are in our region, their resources are way beyond what Furman can ever be. So when you see a coach that's successful, if it's Bob or if it's Clay or if it's anyone else that's doing really well here with their teams, you just know that they're choosing to be here at Furman, myself included. Like, you got to want to be at Furman, and you got to want to know what it is working through it. But from a commitment standpoint, the commitment is very strong, strongest it's ever been at Furman. Great support from the president, great support from the board, great support from our donors, and contracts in place that allow for that in terms of people that are in leadership roles, in coaching, and different administrative positions are really committed to the work that's going on here. But it's in a great place. We have to continue to grow the program. Just because we focus on an arena doesn't mean that's the last thing that we've got to focus on. We've got a lot more that we've got to do in terms of building the infrastructure, building the success. And the goal, again, is to year in, year out, to compete, to win Southern Conference championships, to be a national recognized program. in the sports that we do, and that's our challenge to how to do it. Sometimes the challenge is you do so well in certain sports, how do you make sure the other sports can keep up with you as well? That's a part of the challenge across the department, because you're going to see what football is doing. I mean, football is a top 10 team in the country right now in terms of where they are. We got to continue to promote that and support that. Basketball here they're one of the top programs in the country, and it's all leveled by other factors. You know, the ACCs and the SECs and the different leagues that are out there, but Furman basketball is a known quantity that we're going to continue to invest in. We're going to continue to push forward, and it's got great traction both on campus and off campus.
All right, next question. Once the renovation is done, how will seating be handled? Current season ticket holders get their first pick. How will those seats be assigned?
Yeah, it's a great question, and actually whoever's asking the question is a little bit ahead of the process in a really good way. And they're asking.
They just want to make sure they get a good seat.
Yeah. Well, so I'm fortunate because I've led a process before we went through this, and this was really the devil in the details. You had to go through all the particulars to make sure that the donors, the fan base, the families, the alumni, the students. It's a really comprehensive process that you've got to look at from the top to the bottom. Truth be told, is one of the things I've told our staff is that we are so focused on the fundraising process, supporting the team right now. That's number one. Fundraising, number two, in terms of driving what we need to do to get the arena done. Number three is the work around the arena, all the details, the logistics that take place, that this sales process and what we're going to do in terms of the seats and the reseating of the building will take place as we get out of season. We're going to start talking about that in the off season, meaning we'll have some time in the months ahead to talk about it. But I would anticipate for all of our ticket holders a sales and donor process that takes place where we'll be outbound with the information. We'll be very transparent with everything we have. We'll use the point systems. We're going to accentuate donor loyalty. We're going to accentuate season ticket holder loyalty. We're going to look at all the different things that impact the season ticket holder experience as we go through. We'll also have a process at some point where there'll be virtual renderings of the building. You'll be able to see where the seats are. You'll be able to see the sight lines, all those different things. But given that the funding process still needs to take place and the renovation needs to take place, there's still time for all of that. Mm-hmm. But we'll be clear and we'll be sure to answer all the questions from our season ticket holder base. The goal in this process, one of the things you want to do is one of the percentages you look at is going to be retention. That we want to retain the ticket holders that we have. We want to keep the people that have been invested in this process. We want to have them be happy as a part of what we're trying to do while we continue to grow this program and go. But we've got a great base. We want to keep all those same people in the building and want to figure out how to go through. It is important to know that, wherever seat you have today, it's not going to exist in the renovation. It's going to be different. The building's going to be different. It's going to be configured different. But it's going to be configured with a home court advantage in mind and a lot of different options when it comes to seating. We talked about your spot, Dan. We're trying to figure out where is the home team radio. We have an idea where it's going to be.
On the floor across from the benches.
So, wish granted.
Please consult the broadcaster when it comes to the broadcast location.
We already got it. But, visiting team radio may be in a different spot because we need to take care of our people first, and then we need to figure out where everything else goes next. But it's going to be good.
After Timmons, what are the next priorities?
I saw that question, and I was like,
wherever the money comes in from?
Yeah, it's one of the answers. I think, I would look at, we did a strategic plan a few years ago where we really sat down and spent time with our department, and we were looking at the holistic growth of our department as a whole and all the different things that take place. And sometimes when you look at a strategic plan, you might not be able to see, it may sometimes feel vague. But within the vagueness of the plan, there's more specifics that you break down into the things that we need to do. So we are obviously laser focused on Timmons now. But as we go through this process, we'll also be looking to endow the programs that we have around us. That's a big push. We've already gotten off to a great start with that. And endowing the programs means supporting scholarships so these programs can exist for perpetuity, so we can continue to have competitive programs and have scholarships and all the things we need to do. We're beginning the process of facilities master plan. We've been tinkering this from time to time, but there's certainly some other projects that are specific to sports. We've talked about projects that are specific to football. We've talked about projects that are specific to lacrosse. We've talked about projects that are specific to some of the other sports when it comes to facilities master plan that we look at. And then the other things we're going to talk about is our sports profile. We're going to look at the teams that we offer and what we do. We're going to look at where we go. Are we going to add? Are we going to increase? Are we going to stay where we are? Are we going to focus on what we're doing to date? Are we going to move things in a different direction? But I would think a more comprehensive look at the department as a whole. And some of those things are beginning to happen now, meaning that when you get to the moment that you've realized the accomplishment of a project, you want to already be down the road on other projects in terms of where things are. So I'd say continued focus on our strategic plan, continued focus on endowing the sports that need to be endowed, a facilities master plan to look at where we need to go from overall facilities, and to look at our sports profile in terms of who we are, what we offer, and where we want to go.
This next one may very well be a no comment, but contract status of both you and Bob Richey.
Yeah, both of us are here. We got long-term contracts. We love Furman, and I think again this goes back to what I was saying before about appreciating talent when they're here. Bob wants to be here. Jessica wants to be here. He's invested in Furman, and things can always change. But the commitment from myself, the commitment from Bob in terms of where we are, has been steady for Furman in terms of what we want to do, where we want to go. And the contracts that we have and other leaders on this campus are situated to allow us to do that. And really, a lot of us are working through the 2026 landscape. We're looking at 2026 and an end of campaign and where we're going from all that different perspective. But there's no date, that for us, like it's one of these things where you're committed where you are, you work where your feet are, and you keep doing the things you're going to do. And all of us are very happy here and working really hard to make Furman the best Furman it can be.
Why are league games in men's basketball played on Wednesdays instead of Tuesday or Thursday?
Yeah, I saw that. Great question again. And actually, that predates me getting here. Mm-hmm. And right before I got here, the league had gone through a conversation with the coaches where they changed from the travel partner model, which was the Thursday, Saturdays, which predated me getting to Furman. They moved the games to Wednesdays, and the reason to move to Wednesdays was a couple different things. The first thing, it's a SoCon decision, meaning the league makes the decision overall. They felt like on Wednesday nights they could get better officials. That was one of the reasons that they did this, is that they felt like the officiating would benefit on a Wednesday versus a Thursday was part of what they wanted to do. They wanted to get off the travel partner model, which had some limitations when it came to scheduling. That was another reason why, is that there was advantages and disadvantages when it came to scheduling. And then another reason is TV. TV was a big thing that they wanted to say, how do we create some flexibility for TV to do that? And if you've noticed that some of our Saturday games, for instance, have been moved to Sundays because Sunday's been a better slot for TV. Mm-hmm. We've gotten great national exposure for playing games on Sunday. And then the final thing, I think, competitively was spacing is how they looked at it, is how do you space the games out so you have 2 practice days in between as opposed to 1 day in between with travel. So there's a whole litany of reasons for why. Sometimes the Wednesday games are actually challenging. I said this early on when I got here. We're in the Bible Belt, and people really appreciate their churches and their community, and my family's one of them. They go to church on Wednesdays, and that's a little bit different than we experienced up north, is that the culture here on Wednesdays in this region, that a number of schools, they raised their hand and said, we get less attendance on a Wednesday because our families are going to church, and that's a big part of what they do, and it's a priority. So I think the league is narrowed in on this Wednesday, Saturday with flexibility is how they look at it. I don't anticipate a change happening anytime soon because there's probably more reasons to keep it that way than to change it. But every year the ADs, the commissioner, we sit down, we look at it and evaluate what it is and where it could go. But those are the reasons why we play on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
The final question as we get into wrap-up mode here is, what is the actual plan for student enrollment? Will it increase or stay the same? And the person said, please clear up any confusion, because apparently they feel like there's a conflict between you or the athletic department,
yep,
you as a spokesperson, and President Davis on where you want student enrollment to be. So what can you share about the plans for student enrollment?
Yeah, that's a very fair question. And I think it's fair to also say that there may be different ideas when it comes from different departments in terms of what they think are the point of emphasis. At the end of the day, we do what our president says. We do what our board of trustees advises us to do. And we follow the leadership unit that takes place in other units. So one thing I'm excited about is that we have a new VP for enrollment who's been hired and announced, and she will start here in June. And she will have a big part of the role in terms of where we go with our enrollment strategy, which would impact the numbers and the retention, the net revenue, all the different things that happen. So having the right partner in place is what we're really excited about doing that. We've obviously got a great relationship with admissions, and Brad Pochard has done a great job with our department in supporting us and comes to all the games and has been a great friend to our program as well. Different views, Dan, like in terms of what you see and where things are going. I think when I was getting here, Furman was going through a reduction strategy where they were looking at size as a strategy, less students on the campus, more of an emphasis on a certain type of student and a certain type of enrollment process where they were shrinking to a degree. I think that contributed a degree to some of our financial challenges when we hit COVID, because some of the things in terms of the math weren't worked out in advance of COVID. Someone like me may look at Furman as a different asset and say, you know what, I think we can grow and expand Furman and maybe look at the footprint being larger. I've said, and I will continue to advocate, that I think that Furman's degree and prestige, that we can have a great marketplace for continued master's programs and education in downtown Greenville, that we can think about our program, that maybe the decision on undergraduate enrollment might be one thing, but we might look at graduate programs and certificate programs. And I've already seen this growth taking place, that there's been new partners that have been hired here at Furman that are doing really great work in downtown Greenville and certificate programs and master's programs. So I think it's a little bit of a philosophical decision on where we are. From what I know, I think the magic number right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500 students is kind of where we're going to look to wind up and where we go, and that's a really solid number for where we are. I think it's really important for the university to stabilize when it comes to a number, because it really impacts the ability to budget, and it really impacts the ability for the university to plan. When you have ups and downs in enrollment and you can't plan for budget, it has an impact on your people, it has an impact on your programs, it has an impact on your ability to forecast where you're going as an institution. So I think some stability would be a really healthy thing with some really unique initiatives and a growth plan as we go. But at the end of the day, it's the president's decision, and it's the board of trustees that they sign off on what that is and where we're going. But I do feel a really strong sense of collaboration, communication. We just had a community day a week or two ago. The entire community had a chance to participate in what the university is working on, the strategic plan for the next 10 years of the focus of the university in terms of where we're going. So the input is there, the questions are there, and I think that's a great question in terms of where we are. But I think the sweet spot's probably around 2,500 for undergraduate, and then to consider other options that take place around it. We obviously think with athletics, we can help assist with that growth. We think we can help grow what we are. You know, the timing for me getting here was such that the university was in a bit of a reduction plan. The size is a strategy plan. I tend to like to grow. I have some different thoughts on what we can do, and we'll figure out where this all lands in terms of how it impacts our athletic department as a whole. But I feel really good about the direction we're heading as an institution, and I feel really strongly about the role that athletics has in terms of helping guide that decision.
One thing about it, never a dull moment for you, right?
Never. But, Dan, I hope you feel better, and I'm just thankful for you and this journey. I know how hard you've worked this year with football, with basketball, with all the things you do on the side. I constantly get feedback about everybody loves Dan Scott, the voice of the Paladins, and to you and to Tom and everyone that's doing all the work this basketball season, thank you. We hope to keep you really busy in the month of March. That's our goal.
I hope so.
So we thank you very much.
All right. Anything else?
No, just come to Asheville. We need everybody in Asheville. Join the party, join the fun, grab your tickets, come up and support. Try to sit together. There's great energy when we're together as a community, and hopefully this time next week we'll be looking forward to some big plans and making some plans where we're going to head next.
That'd be awesome. Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been the monthly get-together with Jason Donnelly and our Ask the AD session. Bob Richey was also here. Look forward to doing it all again next time. Until then, for Bob and for Jason, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you and so long, everybody.